Oh, here she is. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the Monday, April 14th regular council meeting of Peace River Council. I'd like to acknowledge that Mayor Manzer is joining us online and just hand the time over to her right now.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. You need to speak a little louder. And I'm turning the meeting over to yourself.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So before us, we have the agenda. Is there any adoptions or deletions?
Yes, Deputy Mayor, there's an additional item, closed section item number 2, MB Peace, Town of Peace River Fire Service Agreement, FOIP section 21 and 25.
Can I get a motion to adopt the meeting minutes, please? Agenda?
I'll move that we adopt the agenda as amended.
Thank you. All those in favor? Carried.
In
So
favor.
we have before us of March 24th, 2025, the regular council meeting.
I'll move that council adopt the minutes of the March 24th, 2025 regular council meeting as presented.
Okay, all those in favor?
In favor.
Thank you, Councillor. We also have the minutes of the April 7th, 2025 special council meeting.
I can move that council adopt the minutes of the April 7th, 2025 special council meeting as presented.
Thank you. All those in favor?
In favor.
In favor.
Thank you, carried. Okay, public hearings, we have none, and presentations today, we have RCMP and Staff Sergeant Blair.
Hello, Council. I just want to thank you for inviting me to Council here tonight. I haven't been here since it's been made official. I was selected as the Staff Sergeant to run the Peace River Detachment, so I will be moving from Fairview to Peace River to take over from Dave Brown, who is here with me tonight. So just going over our quarterly staff report that went out some time ago between October and the month of December. Older months mean different types of crimes that are reported through that time. We did see an increase in assaults that came in for the town of Peace River. That generally means it's cold out, people are generally cooped up inside. We get called to those. Another increase that we saw was a number of break and enters, very familiar with that in the community, and a number of theft of motor vehicles. We are working with a couple of our outside resources to help curb that. We had a couple of individuals who were arrested and charged with break and enters, and they were remanded in custody. Those matters are still before the courts. Break and enters and theft of motor vehicles also leads to an increase in theft under 5,000, which we saw an increase in that during that time. One decrease that we saw through October through December was the mental health theft. That could be a variety of things coming in, Christmas, holidays, people spending time with their families. So those kind of calls go up and down throughout the year. A big increase that we saw through the time of Christmas and New Year's was impaired operation of a motor vehicle of a conveyance. We were out in full force over the holidays looking for people in violation of that, and a number of Alberta sanctions were laid during that time. We were also out doing roadside checks, motor vehicle stops, and increase of our violation tickets, mostly focusing on uninsured motor vehicles that are on the highway, which pose a risk for further other violations and risk to the people on the road. One thing that we have constantly seen kind of an increase in is our abandoned 911 hangups. I think I was at council last time and kind of brought that up. Some of the businesses in town, you have to dial 9 to get out, which means people dial 911, forget they dial the 1 and then dial 1 again, which goes to 911. Therefore, we're dispatched. We do respond to the hospital and a number of hotels in town. It's kind of an ongoing issue that we do bring up with the building. They can't really change it right now, so that's kind of why you see an influx in those calls. Our CLO officer, Constable Sunday, has been out in full force in the region, doing all of his presentations, especially focusing on with the youth. He had a mentor come up, spoke with the Peace River School District and the Holy Family Catholic School District regarding mentoring in his program. He is a celebrity chef that's up this week, and I believe he's working on getting a music producer up here to speak with the youth about different career paths and how they can attain those. Number of presentations were done within the community, mostly focused on youth education, driver education, seniors with fraud presentations. We also did the risk program in October, which saw, I believe, 200 students come through that, which is a great program that we have. It focuses on impaired driving and how the repercussions of that are moving forward. And I believe that's all that I have for now.
Great, thank you. Any questions from any of the councillors?
Go ahead.
Councillor Carr?
I have a couple for you. First one is the checking of businesses at night. Has that been implemented?
Yes, it has. I do have a number of officers that have been downtown every night checking the businesses, have been leaving their business card behind.
Okay, the reason I asked that is I haven't had a business card in my door in probably a year and a half.
Okay,
So I'm just wondering, are they just doing the downtown? Or are they doing the entire town?
I believe we've been mainly focusing on the downtown, but we can expand that to the entire town.
Okay, thank you. Oh, one other question I had, if I may. I understand the sheriffs, the provincial sheriffs have teams that they can send out if your crime rate is going high and they do surveillance and reporting and so on. Is that something that the town would request, or is that something you would request? Do you think that would be an asset in our situation? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
As of right now, the sheriffs have the scan program, which they can come to a region if there's a residential property that is causing a number of issues that doesn't lead to us laying criminal code charges, but trying if there's constant traffic going, unsightly properties, things where they can come and investigate and essentially have those people evicted. That's the scan program that is operating in our area. But as for the other unit, which I can't remember what the name is off the top of my head, but they're mainly focusing in the Edmonton and Calgary area right now, as it is a pilot project, and then they will be expanding outward after.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Shannon?
So the premier was speaking on Saturday morning on the radio, and apparently there's some discrepancies into what she said into what is the actual thing. So someone asked me yesterday if I would pointedly just ask the question, how many officers do we pay for? How many do we have? How many positions do we have filled?
Thank you. Excellent question. As Minister Ellis stood in front of the Alberta legislature last Thursday and specifically mentioned the town of Peace River and our staffing issues here, the numbers that he had stated, I'm not sure where they came from, but they are not in a representation of what we have working in the town of Peace River. So the town of Peace River funds 12 positions, 0.5 of a position of that is funded by Northern Sunrise County. 18 positions are funded by the province. We have currently working right now, all of our positions are for the most part full. We have 3 soft vacancies across all of our positions and 1 hard vacancy. I don't know where the only 5 police officers working in the town of Peace River came from. That is completely inaccurate. And comments like that not only put my officers at risk, but put the residents of the town and surrounding communities at risk for people thinking that there's nobody here working. We have 24-hour policing here. People call for the police, we will respond.
Okay, so you're saying then out of these 12 positions, we have 1 soft vacancy in there, out of the 12 or out of the 18?
Out of the 12 positions that the town funds, we have 2 soft vacancies.
And by soft, you're talking maternity leaves, paternity leaves.
Members are off for a variety of reasons, medical reasons at this point.
Okay, so you got 2 there, and then on the provincial side, you're full complement?
On the provincial side, we have 1 hard vacancy, which we are looking at filling, and we have 1 soft vacancy.
Okay, the next question is, Arthur, or Constable Sunday, who pays for him? Is that one, is he, because you always speak of that position almost independently from the rest, so is that position under the TPR funds, or is that under the provincial?
That's a municipal funded position, half funded by the town, half funded by Northern Sunrise County.
Okay, so he only spends time in northern Sunrise County and the town then if we're paying for it.
The county has agreed and expressed their interest in him going out to Grimshaw as well, as there are youth involved in that community and individuals from there go out to the Grimshaw as well.
So that's taken out of their portion of the
Yes.
funds, not from the Peace River portion of the funds then?
Yes, it is taken out of theirs.
Okay, so how many, out of the 12 positions and 18 positions, I know this might be crazy questions, but at any one, let's take now, for example, how many RCMP are on the street right now as we are here?
As we're speaking right
Yes, in
now,
real time.
there are 5.
Oh, maybe that's where you got the number 5 from. So 5 are patrolling, and that would be 5 munis or 5 probs?
It would be a variety, it'd be a variety of both, depending on who's slated for which position right now.
And they're night shift, everything, all over 24/7.
We have 24-hour, 7 days a week policing in this town, yes.
And then during the hours of midnight and 7 in the morning when all the crimes take place, are there more officers, less officers, or the same amount of officers over that period of time?
We generally run the same throughout. Crime happens all day, every day. So we generally have the same amount working days and nights. It all depends on how the schedule flows. We might have more, we might have a little bit less. It all depends on how the schedule lays that day.
Oh, okay, so there's no statistics, anything that's saying that nighttime portion has any more crime, a higher crime rate than the other, like the daytime then?
It all, I can look and see, but it's sometimes higher crime rates can come in through the day as people are out being visible, or sometimes it can come in at night. It all varies depending on day to day.
And then how do they, I'm just trying to understand all the different arms here and how they work together. So how does that department then work with the CPO and the sheriffs? Do they all interact and speak, or do they, try and stagger shifts to make sure? I'm just asking because I don't know, like, do they stagger shifts to make sure someone's on at the higher peak times of crime, or like, how does that work? How does their integration work?
So we have our scheduling that we do independently of the sheriffs and of the CPO. We focus on filling our positions and making sure that our members are out. We do have regular meetings with the town to work with him, to engage with him and doing different patrols and responding to crime separately.
Okay, so there is that relationship there
There
of all the entities that are working here.
Yep. I've worked with Danny for many years. I knew him before he came to Peace River, and I talk with him probably once a week.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilor Carr, we have our citizens on patrol starting up fairly soon. Is the RCMP excited about it? Are they apprehensive? Are they?
No, we're pretty excited about it. It's another entity that helps us. The people on citizens on patrol, they're residents of the town or the county or wherever they're living. It's another eyes and ears for us. Like, we can't be everywhere at once, and we know that. So we do rely on citizens that go out there and do active patrols and then report things to us. We take all that reporting, and I'm able to adjust my members on where they're actively patrolling and are focusing for our crime trends. So that information does help us. And I believe Corporal Hutley has been attending those meetings regularly.
Yeah.
Councillor Shannon?
Sorry, one more question. In your opinion, both of you, do you have enough RCMP in our region or in our direct region? Or in your opinion, how many do you think we need?
That's a pretty complex question. Dave did, before I came in, Dave did submit a business case to the province asking for more resources for the area. Crime has become more complex over time. It's not as easy as it was 15 years ago. Plus our crime severity index has gone up for the region based on a variety of things. I would never turn down having more police officers in the area, the more the better. But for the region that we have and for the area that we have, yes, I believe that we do need more resources for this detachment.
And do you have even an approximate number? Like, would you say 1 to 5, 5 to 10? How many additional bodies would you say that you would need to run a really effective?
It would be nice to have probably 5 to 10.
In additional?
Additional,
5 to 10.
yes,
Okay,
for what we
thank you.
have right now.
We haven't gone through this in the world. Madam Mayor, do you have anything you'd like to add or ask?
No, I'm just, well, maybe I do. I'm looking at the chart on page 8 of 11, which is Municipal Operations Human Resources Overview, which is sort of what the discussion was. The other element there, detachment support. So detachment support, it's not the admin that we pay for, or is it?
No, the detachment support that they have here is the public service employees, but the town does supply us with 3 municipal employees.
Thank you. And you were mentioning that traffic, I don't know, incidences were up, but there's also, could you explain the difference between, on the other hand, property damage that's reportable versus non-reportable? Because,
Under the, for traffic collisions?
yes, please.
Yes, so, traffic collision non-reportable means, any type of collision where nobody was injured and the damage is under $5,000. You don't have to, we don't have to be involved in that, doesn't have to be reported to us, but people still do, as the threshold was $2,000 previously, that just went up last year. And the reportable is anything where somebody is injured or a hit and run where somebody fled the scene and damage over $5,000.
Thank you.
Councillor Ford, do you have anything you'd like to ask or add?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions, just, and I'm not that great at math, so you'll have to forgive me about that, but when I was looking at the report there on the burglary and suspicious activities or thefts, I can't remember, suspicious activities, et cetera. There were 32, if I'm correct, 32 files in one and 38 in another, and 2 charges from each, so it was a total of 4 charges out of 70. Now, is that 4 individuals, or is that, could one individual could have more than multiple charges, am I correct?
Yes, one individual could have multiple charges. It was just 2 people were charged and they could have had a number of charges like under that.
So in these cases, you're looking at 70 files roughly and 4 successful, I guess, catch the guys, which leaves 64 that kind of weren't. And one of the things we hear anecdotally is that you may call a suspicious activity something going on. By the time anybody gets there to look at it, these guys know, they're not stupid. They know they have a window of opportunity to get in, get out and do the thing. My feeling is 4 successful out of 70 is not I hate to put it this way, if I was gonna cook 70 meals and only 4 of them are edible, I'd have a question about my success rate. And again, I'm not being critical. I know you guys got a tough job to do. But when we're hearing about the increases of crime on our streets and our people are saying, you gotta do something about it. And they're calling in, you get there after the fact, that you do your job, you do the research, etc. We hear about that low amount of things. So a lot of people I've heard are saying, well, why would I bother? They're not gonna get my stuff back. The other thing is, we hear about the catch and release thing going on, and I mean, that's something that probably affects you negatively also, is there's somebody charged, and I heard of a case recently, I don't know the person's name, et cetera, that they were charged, brought in, they're a repeat offender, there's somebody who's known, they get charged, they go to court, they're back out. They're not gonna change their behavior. And then now the same people are getting to be known by name as, you know, the guys that are creating a lot of the mayhem and damage. And you know, what are the solutions to that? Because our people are looking to us for solutions. And I don't think we're getting a lot of solutions. I'm just being serious about how people are feeling. At the meeting yesterday, there were talks about people talking about carrying baseball bats. There were people talking about sooner or later, somebody here is going to do something about this. And then we hear stories of somebody who did do something, sort of go after the guy, and they were told that they're in the wrong when they're protecting their own stuff. These are all anecdotal, I get it. And I know the difference. But these are realities that the people in our community are facing. And we're looking for any help we can get. You know, you say we have 12 positions, I guess, in Peace River. Does that mean those 12 stay in the Peace River border, or do they end up going out of town depending on circumstances, et cetera? And how much of that time, I'd sort of like an idea of how much time our guys, our 9 guys or 9 people, forget guys, sorry about my terminology, but 9 people are actually boots on the ground in Peace River when we're paying over $2 million a year?
So yeah, I can answer that. The majority of our calls for service that come in are within the town of Peace River. So it kind of goes both ways. Yes, we have the municipal funded positions, and we also have the provincial. We have both of them, municipal and provincial, that are spending the majority of their time in the town of Peace River, responding to calls in the town of Peace River. Yes, they do go to calls in Grimshaw and our surrounding communities. If something serious comes in, then we are gonna have more officers respond to those. But for the majority of the stats that I have based on last year, the majority of the calls that we have are within the town of Peace River.
Well, you know, you mentioned earlier, if you don't mind, just come back, you mentioned earlier about where the numbers, the talked about numbers weren't accurate, and I'm agreeing with you, because again, you know them way better than we do. But if it was tracked, how many, for example, you say we have both our Peace River people and we have some municipal people, and they could all be in the town at the same time.
Mhm.
That would be something I think that would be very, very good and reassuring for the public to know that it's not just one person out at night or two people out at night. There are in fact 5 or 6 out at night. And those numbers would be really handy for the public to hear that and get an understanding of what's going on. I know we've asked that in council sort of said, we'd sort of like to get an idea of how many people are on the street in our town. We've been asking for a while, and the numbers never come. I get it, people are busy, et cetera, so forth, so on. I'm not trying to be critical. I just think that those things would be very useful.
Can I just respond?
Sure.
And maybe just for the record, I'll introduce myself. I'm Staff Sergeant Dave Brown with the RCMP, formerly your detaching commander, and now in my new role, I'm the district advisory NCO. So I am the conduit for your detaching commander and for you guys to the district office for the RCMP in Grand Prairie, but I work out of Peace River. Typically, I wouldn't accompany Lacey to a council meeting, right? This is her role. Of course, given that there's been some conversation about this at the provincial level and our staffing levels as it relates directly to Peace River, following a meeting that I understand that the town had with members, with the deputy premier this within the last couple of weeks, the management team asked me to come and be here, a resource for you guys, just to see where this idea of the numbers came from, right? Because I agree with you, right? It would be very helpful if the information going out to the public from both the municipality and from the province were accurate in terms of the numbers of the people that were on the streets, right? And I think it's important that, the community knows that, right? And I guess part of my reason for being here today is to determine where the wheels fell off the wagon in terms of our communication with council. And what the numbers actually are, and if what the deputy premier and then echoed by the premier was later relayed on the radio was something that was relayed by council, or if that was in fact something that the provincial entities had moved forward with and just kind of misunderstood what was told to them, right? That's concerning to us, and that kind of brings me forward before you here today. And I'd like to respond to some of your other questions too, although you had a couple. So in terms of the communication quarterly, you should be getting from your detachment commander a report that lays out our staffing levels and your MPSA levels, right? Your municipal police service agreement members that you have, your soft vacancies and your hard vacancies. I can tell you, those shift from time to time, depending on injuries, depending on mat leaves, parental leaves, whatever might be happening. Whenever we approach 3 people or 5 people in terms of, personnel strength at the detachment under the MPSA agreement, right? So in addition to that, I know your commander and I had before I left, and then Lacey took on that role, has a standing monthly meeting with the CAO, with administration, and oftentimes the mayor is present as well, right? And I know we discuss staffing strength and that sort of thing and priorities for policing at those meetings. So I guess my return question to council, and I'll get back, Councillor, to your other questions that you had posed about crime solve rates and that sort of thing. But I guess my question to council is, where can we improve with the communication to provide accurate numbers? And did in fact those numbers come from council to the deputy premier, who then presented them before legislature? Or is there an improvement required on part of your RCMP partners here?
Madam Mayor?
So I didn't catch what was said about the numbers. I couldn't, the volume's not good. so what numbers are we talking about that we're?
So
just-
before legislature, the deputy premier presented that the town of Peace River funds 17 positions, and of those 17 positions, only 5 are filled, accounting for a vacancy rate of approximately 71%, which obviously isn't accurate. Although the town of Peace River wasn't specifically mentioned by the premier, the conversation was kind of connected to that of the deputy premier, so one could infer that she was referring back to that and suggested that there were 3 people on duty in Peace River as opposed to the 17 funded positions. And of course, both there's contradictions in the funded positions and the strength. And so I guess that's where our concern comes from, is that message going out to the people.
Yes, so I attended the meeting, and frankly, I have no recollection of the number 17 being mentioned at all. So I'm not sure where that came from. At these meetings, we specify that the town of Peace River pays for 11.5 positions, with 0.5 from Northern Sunrise to make the sort of 12. But yeah, personally, I have no idea where 17 came from.
Okay, Burger, we just want to be abundantly clear to council that you don't have just 5 or 3 members working out of the detachment strength of personnel that we have assigned to. That's just not accurate.
Councilor Good?
Yeah, I think that maybe I can point out where the misunderstanding could come from. In this report, it says municipal operations, human resources overview, and it lists 12 established positions, 9 working, 2 special leave, and 1 hard vacancy. That's on page 8 out of 11. So doing my math, that's 12, that's maybe 12 people. You got a couple away, maybe 10 round numbers, who cares? Number here, number there. That's 10. Well, you got 2 shifts, that's 5. Okay, so you only have 5 people on the ground. How can you have 12? Now, you're saying that there's also another group of RCMP officers that we're not seeing in this report.
That's correct.
And that may be where, I'm being very straight with you, that may be where the miscommunications come from, because the only numbers we've been receiving in these reports don't talk about the provincial number of police that are in the area. They talk about the number of people in the municipal operation. And then we hear about, well, they're also in Grimshaw sometimes. They're also out in other rural areas. And we're doing math as with the number we have, which is 10, and say, well, if they're gone, that leaves 8. So that's maybe where the communication issue is that no criticism, no blame, but the numbers we have indicate 10 or 9.
Sure. And I can see where that confusion comes from. So Peace Regional Detachment benefits from what's called a post model detachment. So we pool our provincial and municipal resources together so that you have a higher number, and that allows us to provide 24-hour policing to the town of Peace River and to the entire region. So guaranteed, no matter what hour of the day you pick up the phone, call 911, you're going to have a police response. There are police officers on shift, not somebody in bed on call waiting for a phone call, as used to be the case when I first started in the region, right? In the early morning hours, right? Arguably when some of the more, difficult crime was happening, I, as the morning shift person, as a constable on the watch, right, would be taking calls at home and then triaging them, determining if I'm going to be called out and then respond to those, right? That regionalization happened with, pooling resources from previously the Grimshaw detachment and our provincial resources into one and allowing that 24-hour policing model. So, I can see where the confusion comes in the quarterly reports. They're split into 2, right? Our municipal police service agreement partners, namely the town of Peace River, get an MPSA report. So you know how many positions are filled out of the number that you're funding. And then our provincial partners get the PPSA one, the provincial police service agreement one. So you're getting different numbers depending on the community, even though it's the same detachment that's providing that service for that reason. We split it up. In future, we could certainly pass a recommendation up the chain to provide a pooled number so that it's more apparent.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councilor Shannon? I noticed that there was a great reduction in mental health calls like you noticed. Are you seeing that trend continue into this next quarter? Can you speak on that?
No, the trend has gone up this past quarter. We have had an increase in Form 10s or Form 8s where transportation to Grand Prairie has increased.
Councilor Shannon?
what is a mental health call, or what defines that?
A mental health call can be a variety of things. Ones where people are expressing harm to themselves or somebody else. We respond, or they're having some sort of drug or addiction psychosis, we can go and then speak with them and determine if they are going to inflict harm to themselves or not able to care for themselves. They will be arrested under Form 10, Mental Health Act, and transported to Grand Prairie, where they will see a doctor there.
They will see a doctor, and then what will the doctor put them into, where is that where your responsibility ends with that person? Now that person comes back to town, have you done repeat Form 10s on the same person over and over and over again, or people in Peace River?
Yes, we have. It's once we apprehend them, take them to Grand Prairie, and then they're lodged there or taken to the hospital there to see a doctor. We're not involved in any of that. That's private between them and their doctor. We're not informed of anything that happens after that. And then, yes, most people do end up back in the community. There are some people that we deal with on a regular basis.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, that goes to some of the other things people.
Yeah, and if I could just respond to some of the questions that you posed earlier, specifically with the clearance rate for break and enter files, right? Yeah, I mean, notoriously, property crime is difficult to solve, right? For a variety of reasons. The first off is typically it's discovered long after it's actually occurred. So, you know, on a Monday morning, right, we'll get reports of what's happened over a weekend when a business owner returns, right? That kind of compounds the difficulty of solving that particular crime, right? Especially in absence of any kind of good quality surveillance footage, right? And where surveillance footage does exist, right? Of course, then we're challenged with identifying a person as well, right? If their face is visible. You know, security cameras are good, especially when they're prevalent. But the problem is that, you know, people become aware of their presence as well, right? And then take steps to try and counter that. So 100%, could there be more that could be done there? Yeah, unquestionably. Those are some of the challenges that we face. With respect to, you know, how to address that, well, I guess my response would be is, you know, as your former detachment commander, I come to the table many times to say the police can only be a portion of the solution. The other component is okay, well, we know our demographic that is, you know, engaged in some of this activity, right? We have step one of the interdiction, which is a shelter, right? But without step 2 and 3 and 4 in terms of ongoing supports, transitional housing and that sort of thing, if those things can't be made available to our community, then unfortunately all you're stuck with is step 1 and there's no progress beyond that. And so you see the same cyclical behavior, right? Quite honestly, what is needed and why, as soon as we saw this, you know, concerning uptick in trend in terms of the displaced population here in Peace River, first thing that we did is we jumped on board the mental health task force to try and deal with some of the root causes of crime and lobby for, you know, additional supports, right? You have to attack it from both ends. The charges are okay, right? But if we're not dealing with that underlying behavior for property crime, I can guarantee you if we arrest someone for a break and enter and take them before a justice of the peace, more often than not, they're going to be released unless there's a substantial criminal record of some degree of violence or a person's crime that factors into it, right? So yeah, we've laid charges and the matter is now going to be going before the courts, right? But what have we done to address the behavior while the person is still on release, right? And that's the challenging part, and especially with property crime, unless we're able to tie it to a specific behavior at a specific time, getting conditions of release that include a curfew and that sort of thing, especially for displaced people, is challenging. So what's needed is either more support or I guess a reanalysis potentially of the supports that are actually being provided here and whether or not that's congruent with, you know, what we're going to get service-wise. Does that kind of answer that question?
Actually, very well. Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
You're welcome.
There's no more questions. Thank you very much, Sergeant Brown, and for much visible service here. And we hope to stay in touch with you soon. And Sergeant Blair, thank you.
You betcha. Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Okay, we're now on to bylaws, and I'm going to turn the time over to Director Mudford.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wojciech. And before you, for second and third reading this evening, bylaw 2171 affordable housing bylaw. An issue of whether or not. At issue is whether or not council wishes to pass a bylaw to remove exemption of the municipal portion of taxation from properties defined as affordable housing. I won't read through the entire report again tonight, as we covered it exactly when this was brought for first reading on March 24th. But again, the options before council this evening are they can provide second, third reading, which the advantages of doing so would be it would maintain past practice of applying the municipal portion of taxation to previously taxable class 513 parcels. There'd be no increased municipal tax burden on all of the other parcels or repairs within the municipality because of that lost revenue. And the affordable housing accommodations will still be exempt from paying school and housing requisitions. We see no disadvantages to pursuing that option. Option 2 would be to decline to provide second and third reading, which the advantage of that is for those parcels, they would no longer have to pay municipal tax, but the disadvantage is all other repairs in the municipality would see a slight increase to account for that. And the financial implication of that option is a loss of about $81,000 of revenue from those parcels. Option 3 would be to provide second and third reading as amended. So the recommendation to council is to provide second and third reading of bylaw 2171, the affordable housing tax bylaw as presented. Thank you. I'll take any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Go ahead. Okay, Madam Mayor?
So no matter what, they do not pay the education portion of the property tax, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Stelmore?
I was actually just pointing out that she had one, but so this is, we are maintaining status quo by passing this particular bylaw.
Correct.
Okay. I will move that council give second reading to bylaw number 2171, affordable housing tax bylaw as presented.
Everybody understand the motion? All those in favor?
In favor.
In favor.
Great. Would you get a motion for the third reading?
Move that council give third reading to bylaw 2171 affordable housing tax bylaw as presented. Oh, that one was just, move that council give third reading to bylaw number 2171 affordable housing tax bylaw.
Okay, all those in favor?
In favor.
Okay, motion's carried. We'll just let it be known that Councillor Good stepped out for this vote. Moving on now to unfinished business, we have none, and we're gonna have the time over to, sorry about the microphone there. I'll just run without it to Director Bell.
Thank you very much. I'm having technical issues here this evening. The first report before council this evening is the council grants to organizations, intake number 1. You've become very popular. It's a good and a bad scenario for you. Makes your decision making a little more difficult. We did receive 8 applications to the March 15th intake. Applicants provided presentations to council, those who were able to attend at the governance and priorities meeting. Some were not able to attend or chose that it's an optional component. It's not a mandatory piece to complete a presentation. Along before you is the requests and the scoring that was completed by 2 members of administration. Council can choose to utilize the scoring option, or you can make your own choices of how you'd like to allocate the funds. There are some recommendations for you to consider or choose not to. The one organization unfortunately had their event much further in advance of the this decision making this evening. It was the U18 provincial hockey team. The policy does not preclude council to say absolutely no. You can make a choice to still do a retroactive award depending on your choice of how you'd like to proceed. The policy states, just for clarity, Retroactive funding for projects that have been completed will not be considered in the following circumstances. The budget for the budget for the grant program is fully expended. The organization is requesting funds to offset a deficit or a debt from their project, or the project event occurred in a previous calendar year. Administration under the first option does not recommend funding that particular group, not because they're not worthy or important organization and event to the community. There is a component of promotion that council and the town would like to receive from these types of activities and support. And the distance from that event is substantive enough that your PR component of it would be somewhat lost. Another option for council to consider is to allocate funds based on however council chooses to award. We do make a recommendation in both option 1 and option 2 to potentially use an operational fund for the Citizens on Patrol ask. It is not uncommon for that particular organization to be funded through regular operations or support of such through regular operations. So that gives council a little bit of wiggle room with the budget, because you have a 480,000 ask of all the applications and a total budget for the year of 50,000 with 2 more intakes to go. So just making note of that. And I am aware of a couple of other applications that will be brought forward at a later date. So just pre-warning, you feel free to spend it all. It's your prerogative, or spread it out as you work.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, I should mention that Peace River Minor Hockey U18 team did ask the mayor to go and give greetings, and at that point they did thank the town. So just so that's part of the knowledge here. The other thing I'm wondering, I have a couple of proposed changes. Do we want to? Should I put those out there right now or not?
Might as well.
Okay, but then I would propose that the swim club receive $1,000. That the Chamber of Commerce, they asked for 1,400, so they received 1,400. The Rotaract, 94.80. The Scottish, I think it's now at 2,500, and Peace Playland go down to 4,000, and the boat racing to 10,000. And I realized looking at this that we've got 2 very big community events here that are expensive to put on, etc., and that they will take 2/5 of our yearly budget basically. But they're well attended and they bring a lot of benefit economically and socially, culturally to the town. So again, my thoughts would be 1,400 for Chamber of Commerce and 4,000 for Playland, and I think 1,000 for the Wahoo Swim Club. And I guess I should say that at this point, I really don't have a problem spending the 29,000. I know there will be more applications. However, some of these, you know, they're nonprofits for one thing. We do support our, you know, our businesses, which are for profit through economic development grants. So I think that these are worthy and do benefit the community a lot. That's all.
Want to ask the mayor a question? Or?
Yes, I want to.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Councilor Craig.
So in that, Mayor Manzer, were you saying to fund Citizens on Patrol out
Yes.
of the operational budget and take it out of the grant to organizations?
Yeah, it was mentioned that other communities, maybe Edson, had done that. And I think for this first round, it would be worthy to do that, see how it goes, and it can always be reevaluated another year once they get their society status and so on.
Okay, Counselor Shannon?
No, I'm good.
Okay, Counselor Good?
Well, just one thought, because, I mean, sometimes you get a gift that's kind of cool, was we got some carbon tax money back. We're not gonna have to pay it, which I think is a certain amount of dollars, and that would certainly make it easier to do the 5,000 for the Peace River Citizens on Patrol. We can move it from there, having no negative effect on the budget that we had already presented, because that money is sort of a bit of a buffer, if you want to use that term. And I think if we're talking about seriousness of helping to deal with issues that are occurring in our town, I think that would be a really good expenditure of those kind of beneficial dollars.
Okay, it looks like we have, Counselor Ford?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on Mayor Manzer's comments too on Citizens on Patrol, because I did also hear that they're not able to get their not-for-profit society status formed right away, so they will not be operational until sometime this fall. So I don't have a problem delaying that until such time as they're actually operational.
No, I can't really speak for Citizens on Patrol, but I don't believe they're on hold. I think believe they're on hold maybe a couple more weeks, not till this fall, not a couple more months.
Unless Councillor Carr can chime in on that, because I know he attends all those meetings, but I thought they weren't able to get their not-for-profits registered status set up until like October-ish or something like that, is what I had heard, so they can't get their insurance to operate just yet.
That's not true.
Okay.
We were told 6 weeks, and that was probably 3 weeks ago that we were told 6 weeks.
Okay.
We should have our status at that point, which we would then have insurance, and then we could begin to operate. So probably, I'm guessing probably 3 more weeks, I think would be reasonable.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that I'm fine with it.
Counselor Good?
So, if I could get like a recap of where we're kind of standing on starting at the Peace River Citizens on Patrol at 5,000 and going down that list of what we're looking at doing.
Absolutely, because I was gonna ask the same thing.
Okay.
Citizens on Patrol, funded through operations. And we would like that within the motion, please, or a separate motion.
Separate.
Maybe separate one, yeah, just so it doesn't get confusing. Peace River Minor Hockey, are we leaving at 0? Madam Mayor, was the suggestion or some funding? It was silent.
I'd like to see them get some funding. If we're spreading it out with others with the 0, I think that they deserve some funding here too. We've handed out a lot of money to a lot of things in the past that, you know, didn't have, we've done a lot of things in retroactive. This is not the first one. So I would like to see them get something.
Suggestions?
I would propose $1,000. They asked for 2,500.
I think that's fair.
Okay, so Peace River Minor Hockey, 1,000. Peace Playland, 4,000. Scottish Society, 2,500. Peace River Rotaract, 9,480. Peace River Chamber of Commerce. Oh.
Nope, sorry.
Nope, okay, so yes, okay. 1,400 for Chamber of Commerce, 1,400. Oh, I wish I had my reading glasses. Swim Club, sorry, 1,000. And Jet Boat Western Zones Racing Association, which is the Jet Boat, 10,000.
Counselor Carr?
You had said 2,500 for the Scottish Society. That should be 1,000 is what they asked for. and you said 2,500.
No, Scottish Society asked for 5,000. I inverted, there's an updated report on Civic Web.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay, thank you.
I made a mistake in the first round of charts.
Okay, so we're kind of sitting at the third option with the following Mayor Manzers and council's suggested amounts. Is somebody prepared to make a motion, or do we need more discussion on this?
Thanks for making that. She did, I guess.
Madam Mayor, would you like to make the motion?
Sure. So I move that the grants to organizations funding for the first allocation period be as follows. To the Peace River Minor Hockey, $1,000. This is the U18C team. Peace Playland, 4,000. Peace River Scottish Society, 2,500. Peace River Rotaract River Days, 9,480. Peace River and District Chamber of Commerce, 1,400. Wahoo's Winter Swim Club, 1,000. Western Zones Racing Association, 10,000.
Everybody understand the motion? All those in favor?
In favor.
So make another motion.
Councillor Scummer,
I'll move that we fund Peace River Citizens on Patrol to the requested amount of $5,000 through operations.
all those in favor of this motion?
In
Carried.
favor.
Thank you. All right, Director Bell, we'll just keep rolling alongside
You
number
bet.
2 now.
Since we're on the topic of spending funds, we are presenting to council this evening a report in regards to the Peace Regional Pool hot tub replacement project. As council is aware, the project has been tendered a number of times. Our second tendering was done this past January 6th with a closing date of February 28th, or sorry, 21st. There was one submission received in the amount of $1,432,343. The tender amount is over the approved budget by council, the capital budget from 2025, a total of $900,000. Administration is providing to council a proposed new project budget for consideration. We are looking at adding a project contingency fund of 10%, which is standard with all capital projects. There are things that occur, unfortunately, and right now there is some uncertainty with tariffs and non-tariffs and tariffs and non-tariff. We don't know. So there is a development of a contingency budget added. And we have a remaining amount that's committed to our engineering company that oversees the construction process. We require that to be funded of $30,000. So we are looking at a total project budget of $1,605,577. We provide you with a breakdown of how this project has been funded over the last 4 years. And our expenses to date, which was predominantly the demolition of the original basin and design and tendering costs related to the engineering company involved. We have a total of remaining budget of $764,421.89. With our new project budget, we do have a shortfall, therefore, of $845,578.11. A conversation with Northern Sunrise County has been completed, and they have put forward an extremely generous offer to assist and partner with our municipality to see this project succeed and move forward if we approve an increase in the capital budget. They're offering upwards of $800,000 to be paid based on actuals, and a commitment of recognition for their participation and generous support to this project. There are no other conditions. So council, you have a number of options. Your first option proposed by administration is to approve the increase of $845,579 to the 2025 capital project budget for a total project budget of $1.6 million, 10,000. This allows us to proceed and make the announcement that we can proceed and also award the contract to the bidder. This is a significant increase. We understand that. That's definitely was not our preferred number in terms of an overall capital project. But this is a pretty significant component of the facility, and we are seeing lower visitor numbers due to less amenities available at the facility. And also that condition assessment report did highlight to council the importance of making a financial commitment to that facility to maintain its life cycle for at least another 15 years. So it is good value for your dollar in that period of time. New facility that's being opened in Yellowknife right now is $72 million. And if you look at the layout of their facility, it's fairly comparable to our current facility layout and amenities. So just in comparison. Though there be a northern factor of expense there. The financial contribution substantive amount is being offered by Northern Sunrise County, so that is a significant offset to the town. The remaining 46,000 would be funded through our capital reserve. And also of note, we have $653,000 of MSI funds that have been allocated to capital projects. So a good portion of the town's part of our budget is coming from provincial dollars that we have to spend because that MSI program is no longer. It's been replaced with the LGFF, local government fiscal framework. Thank you. Lots of acronyms. So there's no sort of carryover of those funds. Option 2 is for council to decline the increase of the project, which essentially puts the project, it would end that project, and we would look at other options to bring back to council of whether we would fill it in, what would we do with that space going forward.
All right, do we have any questions for Director Bell? Councillor Shannon?
Okay, I just gotta ask. Do you think there's any other hot tub in Alberta that cost $1.6 million?
I honestly don't know. I do know some municipalities have chosen not to proceed with the rebuilding of their hot tubs. They had the exact same situation that we have had. That's unfortunately, this is a bit of a COVID secondary outcome because hot tubs sat empty for over 2 years while we couldn't utilize them well. But in some of those cases, Edson as an example is one of them. They are looking at rebuilding an entire facility. So for them, that doesn't make much sense to rebuild something that they're building a brand new facility on. So I just don't know.
And to refresh my memory, 15 more years left on this building?
Yes, yeah. If we make the financial commitment into all the repairs and maintenance as per recommended, based on that building condition assessment.
So right now we're gonna look at $1.6 billion hot tub, and we're also gonna look at a slide. And what was the rough cost of that again?
Oh, I feel that the condition assessment stated the slide portion, the actual tube was about 300,000. The mezzanine was about 150,000. The mezzanine is the structural area that we have to do repairs on before we can fix the rest of the slide. We're ballparking within a $750,000.
So we're looking at almost 3,000.
No, I take that back. My math did not work. I had a-
So all in all, we're looking at about 2.5 million for a slide and a hot tub in a building that's not going to be useful or usable probably in 14 now. We said 15 a year ago. It's probably down to 14, 13. So
just 14, but again, your other option is, and I hear this quite regularly, why are we not just rebuilding at very, very minimum, 35 to 40 million dollars.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just trying to think in this facility. Does it make good economic sense to spend $2.5 million on a slide and a hot tub? I can't wrap my head around that. I'm sorry.
Madam Mayor?
Sorry.
Well, I would kind of disagree with Councillor Shannon's comments in that it is a very valuable amenity for our community. It does provide basically things relatively low cost to for people to do. And I think we've lost a few people that would use the pool without the hot tub and the slides. So we think 15 years into the future, if that's the time frame, those 15 years times whatever the usage is per year, I think it's actually a good spend of our money, especially at the same time that we have 800,000 coming from our neighbors here that why would we turn that down, basically? And I think we've spent a lot of time on this element. I think it's time to move forward and get the job done. And I would put forth a motion whenever you're ready, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just gonna hear from a few more councillors first. Councillor Good? Carr first. Or Councillor Carr?
Is there a timeline on this?
Our construction is proposed to begin during shutdown because there's a demolition component that needs to be done. So we would start construction during shutdown to be completed, commissioned, operational by January 2026. It's approximately a 5-month construction period.
January 2026?
Yep, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any more comments or questions before we put the motion forward? Okay, Madam Mayor. Oh,
Go ahead.
Councillor Good?
I'll put the
Oh,
motion
well, I
forward.
think, Madam Mayor's.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, do you want to put forward your motion?
Sure. Okay, so I move that council approve an increase to the 2025 capital project budget for the hot tub replacement project, bringing the total budget to $1,610,000, with such increase to be funded as follows: $653,590 from the existing approved budget, $800,000 from the financial contribution from Northern Sunrise County, and $46,000 to be funded from the tax-supported capital reserve, buildings and engineered structures.
Does everybody understand the motion? Okay, all those in favor of this motion?
In favor.
It's carried. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Director Bell. And we'll now call upon Ms. Parsons to speak on the Municipal Policing Committee.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Good evening, Council. So this should be fairly short and sweet. You'll recall back in February, we brought this forward and Council proceeded with a motion to support the formation of a regional policing committee with our RCP District West partners. At the time, we weren't 100% certain what all of our district partners were doing. However, since that time, all of our partners have decided to ask for the exemption to form their own municipal policing committee, leaving us all by ourselves. So I did consult with administration from the department, and their suggestion was that we also apply for the exemption, just the way the legislation is written. If we were to form a regional committee on our own, then it's like you still have to consider the region. And so they just said it would probably be best that we apply at this time to form our own municipal policing committee. I would take any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Ms. Parsons?
Does it make a difference? We're kind of doing this either way, right? So we're sort of, now, just to clarify, they're not forming their own between them and excluding us. All of those communities are gonna just do their own for themselves.
Correct. Each municipality is seeking the exemption.
Okay.
Is this separate from that $30,000 study that the province is funding? This is a separate thing, is it not?
Yes, this is separate. So this is the amendment to the Police Act, where it's now mandated that municipalities, depending on your size and what category you fit in, have to create a municipal policing committee or a regional policing committee. If you're small enough, then you fall under the provincial one that they're forming, and then you don't form one on your own. We fall in the size of the regional, but under the legislation, if you had valid reasons why you wanted to form your own municipal, you can apply for that exemption. And all of our partners have applied for that exemption.
Yeah, sure, let's go for it. I'll move the council request an exemption from the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services to form a municipal policing commission in accordance with 28.042 of the Police Act.
All those in favor of this motion?
In favor.
In favor.
It's carried. Thank you. All right, now we're on to item number 4. So we'll turn the time back over to Director Mumford.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Witchup. So this is a briefing note on our mobile home tax arrear collections. So purpose of this is to provide information regarding mobile home properties in arrears and outline the costs associated with enforcing mobile home tax arrears recovery, as well as the process involved. So arrear letters were sent to mobile home owners on January 28th, 2025, advising them of tax arrears due and owing. Owners were informed that if the amounts paid were not paid, or sorry, if the amounts owed were not paid, tax recovery proceedings would begin. Now, it's important to note that the town of Peace River has not initiated any mobile home tax recovery enforcement since 2018. And although non-mobile home tax recovery that has been initiated through tax options, and enforcement is a requirement under the MGA. Currently, we provided some information here. In Chevy Heights, there's 5 properties in arrears with a total owing of $3,347.70. In Cool Springs, there's 9 properties in arrears with a total owing of $8,307.72. And in Terrace, there's 9 properties in arrears with a total owing of $8,486.64. It's also important to note that mobile home ownership and contact information is not always up to date. We've been working with Trail Park Management to address this, but it is still a work in progress. Tax recovery for mobile homes is carried out through civil enforcement executed by provincial bailiffs. The bailiff has the right to enter a debtor's home or business to collect on the outstanding debts, and they may seize property to cover the debt. Bailiffs can seize a variety of property, including vehicles, homes, cash, and luxury items. The debtor will receive a notice of seizure and have 15 days to object, after which the seized property can be sold. When a bailiff arrives, they must show their Alberta Civil Enforcement bailiff badge and picture ID. Even if it has to leave, bailiffs may continue to perform the duties. For safety reasons, bailiffs may request the accompaniment of sheriffs or police officers when entering a home or business. The mobile home owner will be given advance notice that their property is about to be seized. As noted in the town sent letters in January advising that arrears are owed and providing them the time to pay. If payment is not received, the town will hand deliver door cards with a letter notifying the owner of the pending seizure. Civil enforcement costs are then added to the arrears owed by the mobile home owner. We haven't done this in many years. We received some quotes for civil enforcement services. So the first quote, it was $399 and then a $65 registration fee. The second quote, there's a $50 bailiff time at $75 per hour, mileage at $1 per kilometer, and a registration fee of $65. So the next steps are to hire a civil enforcement agency to handle collection, send outdoor cards to notify owners about the impending seizure, notify trailer park management about the impending seizure, and proceed with civil enforcement seizures. Some additional information that we included for council. Civil enforcement causes a significant financial burden to the party under which enforcement is being enacted. The value extracted from the seized items when disposed of often does not match the replacement cost. This can create significant hardship for those individuals. So just as an example, it could be a TV that they spent $2,000 on, but it only gets valued at $400, $500, whatever it is, because the replacement cost is significantly higher than what it would actually be worth when they go to sell it. In February 2024, administration brought forward bylaw 2146, which was the assessment of designated manufactured homes in a manufactured home community, which would have eliminated the opportunity for this situation to arise, as the onus of collection would have been shifted to the park managers. However, council elected not to proceed with that bylaw, and it was defeated at second reading. Council may wish to consider a similar bylaw in the future. Alternatively, council could pass a bylaw requiring that all designated manufactured homes within manufactured home communities be on a monthly payment plan, which would further reduce but not eliminate the risk of non-payment situations arising in the future. Many residents and businesses benefit from the stability and consistency of monthly payments where they may otherwise struggle with one large lump sum payment. Thank you, and I'll take any questions.
So when I do the quick math here, the average of these is somewhere between $750 to $800, $900 owed, and we're gonna spend 500 plus to recover that. Does that sound right?
Correct, and those costs would then be added to what is owed. So the amount that needs to be seized would exceed that.
Have we tried other methods like payment plans for those behind or anything like that? Because understandably, somebody living in Cool Springs might have a hard time coming up with $1,000 in one shot. Have we tried anything along payment plans or like that, or have we dealt with these people at all?
Yeah, our tax clerk has worked extensively in trying to make arrangements to reach out to follow up and ultimately advise that there's a risk of this happening if they don't pay. There's a concern as well, and part of it is through the town having not enforced this for a while, that if the perception is that owners of those properties don't need to pay tax, that if the town's not going to take any action against them, then it becomes more and more frequent that it occurs. And that's one of the reasons why, it is a requirement that we do pursue those amounts owed.
Are we allowed to cut off services like water if people don't pay their taxes?
Subject to check, I don't believe we're able to cut off water for unpaid taxes.
Councilor Carr.
Any idea why we haven't done anything since 2018? If it's in the MGA that we're supposed to?
So it does take a bit of time to get in a position that you're able to pursue. I think there's also, again, I don't want to speculate too much because it was in the time prior to me being in my role. But again, it could have been at the time it was deprioritized. It could have been that at the time they were better at staying more current. But I don't have the whole history, Councilor Carr.
Well, it hasn't changed in the MGA. The MGA said that in 2018 that we had to do it.
That is my understanding, yeah.
Okay, one more thing. These numbers that you have here, are they compounded since 2018? Or is this?
It depends on each individual circumstances, how far in arrears they are. They would be subject to the same penalties that all other ratepayers would.
Yeah.
And so that would then accumulate over time, as once a penalty is applied on an account, it becomes part of that principal balance owing.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, my same one. Maybe.
Councilor Shannon?
Sorry, just one question. So out of, you mentioned a few other options that we could do If we wanted to, out of all those options, which would you think would be the middle of the road option, like something that would please everyone?
I don't know if you ever please anyone when it comes to property taxation. I mean, again, administration brought forward 2146 as it shifts the burden to the manufactured home, manufactured community home owners, right? And then those are for-profit businesses. So that was why it was proposed, because right now, again, the burden is on the municipality. And again, the MGA, it's, I use the analogy of hitting a nail with a sledgehammer. You know, it's very, very punitive. And when these situations arrive where, you know, for us to follow what the MGA dictates we should be doing, it puts those people in financially a much worse place than they would have been if they just paid, you know, a small amount every month, right? Because for many of these properties, the tax bill associated with these trailers are in the kind of $500 to $1,000 a year type of range. If you're dealing with, you know, I mean, if you've got a trailer that's the assessment on it is 50 grand, you're looking at the municipal portion of that bill is you know, about $500. So the option to pass a bylaw that requires that all of them be on a payment plan, I think would take a bit of it. A bit of that staying over. It doesn't eliminate all the risk, because you're still gonna have someone that just doesn't adhere to the terms of that plan and doesn't pay. But again, administration's recommendation last year was to proceed with 2146. Council opted not to, but it's something that could be considered again in the future.
So basically then it's either we are burdened with the financial burden, or we have the financial burden, or another entity has the financial burden. That's what it basically comes down to. Either a for-profit has the burden or we have the burden, correct?
Yeah, again, though, I think that, and we did meet with, in town, there's two managers of the three trailer parks, and they, you know, we discussed this with them fully, because some of the concerns that they raised is that it's now putting an administrative cost on them, that they're going to have to then pass those costs on to their customers. The trade-off is, because they're collecting their lot rent monthly from those property owners, they can be much more timely in the response in the event of non-payment. So for the municipality to pursue, they need to be in arrears. You know, they have to be at least a year overdue. And so that amount that's owing grows and grows. You know, it can be a significant amount once those penalties, relatively speaking, a significant amount once those penalties are applied, right? It's all relative to the circumstance of the individual. But absolutely, once it gets to a point that we're adding on a fee for a bailiff and then collecting things that we're only going to potentially be able to sell at a fraction of the replacement cost, it's, you know, it would be obviously very hard on those folks.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
So, Director Mugford, you just mentioned, for tax purposes, basically, they're a year in arrears and then they can be pursued. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay, so if they were on a monthly plan and they were a month in arrears, would they be pursued, or does it still wait for a year?
I'd have to check. I'd have to confirm with the tax clerk to know what timeline we would be on, in terms of when. Yeah, I need to confirm that.
Okay, because I see value in a bylaw that says they must pay monthly. Then there might be, well, there's going to be 12 notices if things aren't being paid, rather than one at the end of the year, which is rather a long time frame. I feel for the people who, for whatever reason, have not paid for their taxes, and the bailiff arrives at their door and says, we're seizing this property, and they're gonna, so if say they owed $1,000, they are looking for $1,000 in property, plus some other recap of the actual expenses for the bailiff and stuff. Is that correct?
So I've never actually undergone this myself. I'm not aware of how the specifics work. I would think they would value based on how liquid it is, right? Like in some instances, if they're seizing cash, they know exactly the value that they're getting. If they're getting I don't know, silver bar or something, they can pretty approximate the value of it. Whereas if it's a television or a vehicle or things like that, it might be a little more challenging to precisely value. But the point I was making is just that generally, if you're dealing with electronics and things like that, the replacement cost is quite a bit higher than the resale value once it's a used item. One other point on, and although these are difficult things to discuss, I always try and look at, the totality of it all, that everyone else in town that pays their taxes is subject to their property being sold at tax auction if they don't pay. So although this is punitive from the perspective of these folks that are having their property seized, where anyone that pays taxes in town is potentially subject to that level of authority being enacted on them.
So essentially, your question is, or you're notifying us that this is what will be happening because certain taxes haven't been paid. And then the other question is, do we want at this point to do a monthly payment bylaw type thing or something else? So it's that kind of three scenarios. You're going to collect, so here's the cost that will happen. Secondly, do we want the monthly?
We're proceeding with enforcement, or we don't have a timeline, but we're looking at approximately June, July, that time frame to give ample time for those residents that are in arrears to be able to make the arrangements. And yes, if council wants to provide some recommendation, if there's something that they would like administration to work towards, then we can do so.
Councilor Good?
I think that at the time you brought up the bylaw originally, you also talked about the people abandoning a unit, for example, and then they owe the money for X amount of time, but they're also not in the province anymore. So your chances of recovering anything at all are really, really slim. I don't know if that applies to any of these situations, but it could. And I think the talk about, well, the burden is on either us or the owner of the park. Well, the burden is actually on the taxpayer. And it's who takes over the burden when that person doesn't meet their, the requirements of what they're supposed to do. Then it's transferred to somebody else. It's either transferred to the park owner or it's transferred to the town, which means it's transferred to everybody in town. I don't know any other way to look at it. So, I think that's where I like the idea of the monthly payment, but I also can see the wisdom of the step up the totem pole as to where it goes to, until it goes to if the end result is every taxpayer in town pays for it, that's kind of really not fair either.
We're not gonna run into a situation where the owner and the person living in the trailer are two different people, are we? And the people say you're renting and the landlord's not paying the taxes, and we won't be in a position where we repossess the renter's property, would we? In this situation?
I can't speak to that specifically. So again, I don't have the full listing in front of me as to whether or not it's tenants in those units or not. But my understanding is that it would be that location is where they would go to secure it. So, but again, I can undertake to confirm that that's the case prior to enforcement.
Well, the tax enforcement and the name might be taken to the residents, so that's where we'll do it. Councilor Scanlon?
I'm just looking at these 23 properties here. I'm looking at all of us around the table at this meeting. The amount of administrative effort going into executing all of this, following through on these requirements. us even here making this decision, all that is probably quite extensive. Like what kind of hours are we talking about? Like, town administrative hours are we talking about putting in, having to follow through on these rules that we really are required to do?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. Again, it was one of the points raised when we previously brought forward 2046, is that it would, it consumes a disproportionate amount of the tax clerk's time and my time.
Any more questions? Would somebody be willing to make a motion?
I can do
Counselor.
it. I move that we accept the briefing note regarding 2025 mobile home tax arrears collection for information.
So,
Madam Mayor?
yeah, so I'd like to know if I could also make a motion about the monthly payment thing. Is that different enough from the motion that's spoken?
Yeah, that's different and would be a different discussion, I
Okay.
believe, as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to accept briefing note regarding the 2025 mobile home tax arrears collection for information. Everybody understand the motion and all those in favor?
In favor?
In favor.
It's carried. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on to item number 5.
Can I pause on that?
So, Mr.
Just wanted to
Chair,
get back to the mayor's thing there.
so, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that council be brought a briefing note on a possible monthly payment bylaw plan for mobile or manufactured home communities.
Get that, Ms. Parsons?
Yes, thank you.
Does everybody understand the motion?
So this is just for a note, we're just getting it in to bring us some info to look into that possibility. Is that, do I have that, I heard correct? Yeah, now I'm clear.
All those in favor?
In favor?
In favor.
Okay, it's been carried. Thank you, Councillor Scamahorn. Okay, we'll move on to number 5. Councillor Scamahorn's March 24th, 2025 notice of motion. Director Mugford and Councillor Scamahorn.
Yep, thank you, Deputy Mayor. So again, this is March 24th, 2025 notice of motion. Background is that during that meeting, Councillor Scamahorn brought forward the following notice of motion. Given the announced reduction of contracted community policing by the RCMP on March 10 to take effect in 2032, I move that administration explore the implications of reducing our Peace River funded complement of RCMP officers whose costs are municipally funded at 70% and over whom we have very little operational influence, and instead redirect those funds to expand our community police officer program and to provide a report with cost benefit analysis to council as soon as practicable. In accordance with the town's procedural bylaw, council must now decide if they wish to proceed with actioning the notice of motion. So the request from administration is that council provide administration direction as to whether or not they want administration to proceed in actioning the notice of motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Good?
Yeah, I'd like to make a friendly amendment because I think the motion is either unclear or needs to change. Where it says is that to explore the implication of reducing our complement, I'm fine with that. It's costing me, I'm fine with that. The part I'm not comfortable with is, and instead redirect those funds instead redirect is an immediate thing. And I think if we're examining something, we don't want to do something that has an immediate effect. So what I would want to change the motion to read is to move the administration to explore the implications of reducing our Peace River funded complement, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and examine the or I don't know the proper term here, examine the redirection of the potential of redirecting those funds so that it doesn't occur because this motion would say that once we pass this, if we pass it as it is, now we're redirecting those funds to the thing because it's worded as a now action, and I think it has to be delayed, so. And instead, examine or explore the redirection of those funds to expand our community programs. So now you have two options, two parts to be done. One, you're examining the moving away from the RCMP, other options, and you're also examining the redirection, the potential redirection of those funds. That's a friendly amendment, as best I could word it.
Yeah, I believe it to be, like, so the actual action portion of the motion for what administrator is doing is just exploring the implications of it, certainly not to do it tomorrow, so my purpose of making the notice of motion and what I see in front of the town is kind of like three silos of time. There's an action we could do today, like something we could, like, for example, funding the, what's my word here, funding the, no, not Apex, the, no, but this Citizens on Patrol.
Yeah.
So funding the Citizens on, that's like a today, we do that today. There's the $30,000 grant, that's kind of a month's thing. The purpose of this notice of motion is a year's thing. This is a down the trail. So this is for Peace River to have information so that when these changes come into place, and when we did speak to Minister Ellis, we sought clarification on this particular item. And he said, yeah, no, this is happening. This is an all parties committee that brought this forward. It wasn't just, I think in the news, it was like, oh, you know, on the way up the door, Justin Trudeau kind of just said, we're doing this now. And he said, that's not his understanding of it. So the RCMP, from what we've been told, is changing in the future. The other thing that came out, so this, you know, since I wrote this, is all kinds of news, is the Minister Ellis also gave his vision for what is happening with the Alberta Sheriffs, in that the Alberta Sheriffs, some of these individuals receive more training and become more capable and would pick up some of the community policing activities for communities. So that would be, you know, would I to rewrite this today, knowing that now, which I did not know then, I would also include that in the options for this notice of motion, and would accept also, or I don't know if I can amend my own notice of motion. This is getting complicated. To include that option in the research as well. The other reason for making the notice of motion is when this comes to pass, should this come to pass, and we don't have any reason to believe it won't come to pass, is that all communities in Alberta and potentially beyond Alberta that have the RCMP contracted for community policing are going to be having to make the exact same choices at the exact same time. And so the purpose of this being that Peace River would have already researched options on what to do and could be, let's say, ahead of the curve in dealing with this eventuality when it does come to pass. So we would have a document, we'd have information, we'd have stuff ready to go. So should we need to make a decision, we are already ready to do that and execute and be doing this before other communities are facing the same thing. I think we're all aware that trained officers don't grow on trees. So if everybody's trying to do the same thing at the same time, and we're trying to do it at the same time as everybody else, being up here in the north, I think we would be disadvantaged in trying to deal with this eventuality should it come to pass. So that would set up future councils, because this is not something that this council would even take action on should we get admin to do this. This would set up future councils to be able to make an educated decision ahead of when this is going to occur.
Madam Mayor?
So I'm wondering, this question that Councillor Good spoke of, the part about and instead redirect those funds to expand our community police. I'm wondering if that whole clause could just read and examine the redirection of these funds to other possible corrective services. And then it leaves it more open to whether it's a community peace officer program or if the province comes up with something that we want to go with.
I'm fine with that.
Councillor Carr?
I have a few concerns with this. First of all, we're a minimum of 2 or possibly even 3 election cycles out before, if this were to stick to the date that is proposed, which I understand, as Councillor Scamahorn said, from what I understood was the wishes or the anticipation of what an outgoing prime minister thought. There's been no formal comment made from what I know from the RCMP of doing this. Secondly, I think the province is in the process of rolling out their police force. Until we know what they are going to do, if in fact it goes through, why would we spend the money on this? Because we would just be, we don't even know what we're going to be dealing with. They might take over all policing. They might take over just municipal policing. Until we know what direction they're going, why would we go down that path?
Yeah, so when we spoke to the minister, and then when he was discussing this, you know, later on, it's not something that is going to be happening all at once. It's that they're going to be transitioning this sheriff's force into more of this community policing and that kind of thing over time. So again, my concern is that it's going to be something that everybody's going to be trying to do at the same time, and that we would be, you know, kind of behind the 8 ball with everybody else. I don't know if that helps your comfort with that, but there you have it.
Councillor Shan?
Well, I don't support defunding the RCMP to hire anybody. I would prefer no funding was taken from the RCMP to make other forms of crime prevention or whatever we're talking about here. I would not like to see that. Will we need more CPOs or stuff like that down the road? Probably not the time now. We're doing the policing study, the one that we put off for 3 years. So I'd certainly like to see the policing study be done and see what comes out of that before we do any more studies and information gathering. It's finally underway, so I think that they're going to push that through faster than we probably think. Also, you know, 2032, like he said, is 7 years away. There's all levels of government are going to have election cycles. There's going to be changes. You know, trying to find information today on something that is happening 7 years from now. And, you know, the same, like you say, with, you know, when we come to make that decision, you want to be ahead. How can you be ahead on information, getting information now when you don't even know what information you're going to need when you're at that point, you know, 3, 4 years from now? I think it's premature to be doing the test now or gathering that information. Administration has made it clear that they're already stretched thin with the current ongoing projects that we're doing. I don't support adding to their workload, nor do I support paying to contract it out. Yeah, this is just really premature. We've got one study on the go. Let's wait till we see what comes out of that. And then maybe at that point, when, you know, we have more discussion on it, we can action another study. But I think we've, you know, I'd like to wait for this study that we have right now, the policing one, to see what comes out of that. And, you know, chase that information maybe a little further down the road when we actually have more fact surrounding it. Because at this point, it's not fact, really. It's not, has not been any. Yeah, that's just what I think of it, but thank you.
Yeah, and that's fair. And so my last sentence or my last part of there, as soon as practical, is meant to be in there to give administration as much flexibility as possible to do this when it suits, when it makes sense, and when they, I guess you could say have the time. So I know we're used to reading as soon as possible, and that means hurry up. This means, or what I intended to mean anyways, is when it works for administration to put this together. So that could be post the study that's on the table now that they're looking at doing for our more medium term, like in months, when we would be taking action on, when we would hopefully get news back from the province on the results to that study. So that's the intention of it. It's like I said, this is meant to be, it is meant to be very open-ended and something that administration can kind of fit in when it makes sense from their perspective.
So then I would ask, wouldn't it make sense to wait then? If you're making the motion and saying, well, I want to make the notice of motion, but I want to wait. Well, then let's just wait and make the notice of motion when you have more information to back it up. I'm kind of wondering on the intent, like what is the rush here? If you were saying it's going to happen down the road, then make your notice of motion down the road, maybe when we have the study back and maybe when all that other stuff. And then we'll know if we need more CPOs or not, and if it's where we're, but I totally want to put it on record. I'd also like a recorded vote on this, Deputy Mayor, that I do not want to see any part of the RCMP defunded. Definitely. There, thank you.
Councillor Scanlon?
Yeah, and again, I feel like it's sort of repeating myself, it's not an emergency, and I don't believe that we should be, whenever possible, we should be governing in emergency. We should be laying out things to do, long time in advance so that plans can be put together and executed sensibly over the course of, reasonable amounts of time, as opposed to, so I understand what you mean about waiting until after the study, and that's fair. This would allow for that, should that make sense? I've worded it that way so that would work that way, should admin feel that is what's most prudent.
Okay, so you are stating that you feel that council, even though we don't know it's not an emergency, so this would you agree then, Councillor Scammacron, that you would agree with that logic as it was put on other situations too? So you're saying anything in council, you think that council good governance would be to not think of it as an emergency, but to think ahead of things. So we could talk like that about economic development. We could talk about that on all kinds of things. So where council should make a decision in a timely manner and not wait for it to be an emergency like we are in many other situations. And would that be what do you believe?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so you're saying that you're doing this notice of motion, so even though notices of motion are usually something very emergent, you're doing it because it's not an emergency, but you think that council's duty is to take care of situations like this that might be an emergency in the future, so that we are prepared for when that day comes. That's kind of what you're saying, right? Like that logic? You just made it, to a degree, but can you just clarify that then?
Yeah, to a degree, that is the intent is, yeah, I used it, I put it in as a notice of motion, but like, again, weeks ahead of this particular meeting, when it would come to pass, there was a GMP meeting ahead, between here and there. So no, I did not submit this as in, I want this action right away. I submitted this as in, I want to plan for this eventuality because it appears to be something that is going to come to pass. And this is something that admin could have, that they would be able to work on, over time as it fits, to help future council be prepared for when these changes occur.
But future council, things are going to change between now and future council. So that's the piece I'm not getting there, that this is not an emergent issue. This could be left until we have more information on a whole number of other things involved in that component. So
yeah, and that's the wording allows for administration to make that decision. So whether we made this motion in 3 months or we made it now, it would have, as it's worded, it would not need to have any impact on how administration operates with it.
Okay, Councillor Carr and then Councillor Ford.
I'm just a little confused again, and Councillor Shannon made a good point why it was brought forward as notice of motion rather than just put on the agenda for discussion. But again, I'm gonna repeat myself. I don't know how administration would move forward with any kind of a report on it without knowing what direction the province is going, or even for that matter, until we get an official announcement from the RCMP, which is gonna take years to enact. They are not gonna pull the pin overnight. They are going to be years working towards this and then working with the provincial police force if we go that route. So how are they going to gather information not knowing what direction we're going is my concern. I'm sorry, but it just doesn't make sense to me.
Councillor Ford?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just listening to everybody's comments, but just getting back to the notice of motion, just to make sure that it's clear, a notice of motion doesn't have to be emergent. A notice of motion is just a way for a councillor to get an item onto the agenda. Is all a notice of motion is, whether it's emergent that it needs to get dealt with right away, or it can get dealt with in a month, it doesn't matter. A notice of motion is just a way for that councillor to get it on the agenda, is my understanding.
Thank you, Councillor Ford. Any other comments? Okay, so we have an amendment on the table here. Is that accepted?
Perhaps I will read the notice of motion first with the friendly amendments, and you can let me know if you and everyone agrees with how I've written them.
Sure.
And then we can adjust from there. So move that, given the announced reduction of contracted community policing by the RCMP, given the announced reduction of contracted community policing by the RCMP on March 10 to take effect in 2032, I move that administration explore the implications of reducing our Peace River funded complement of RCMP officers, whose costs are municipally funded at 70% and over whom we have limited operational influence, to determine if it would be more feasible to redirect those funds to other possible forms of policing services, and to provide a report with cost benefit analysis to council as soon as is practicable.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Okay.
And, yeah, and then what information comes back, council of the day can be open to dealing with.
Could I make a friendly amendment? Thinking if we remove the very first line, and then what we're doing is looking at administration, looking at different policing options and costs for our community, whether it be Apex, CPO program, or RCMP.
Yeah, but again, until we know what the province is doing, how are we gonna do that?
make sense.
Yeah, but we could also run a cost analysis, whether to run a CPO program or hire somebody like Apex to secure. That's where I'm thinking that comes along on it.
I think that's a different motion.
Well, it is worded later in the reading of, where it includes the other types of, yeah.
Well, it counts good.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw a suggestion out here. I understand the reason behind the motion, which I think is really good. I also understand it's kind of giving a nebulous command or a nebulous request to administration to look into something and prognosticate in the future, which they generally do a pretty good job of. At least the administration we have right now, I'm very happy with that. I'm not so sure, to be honest with you, reading it and hearing it, that it really matters whether it passes tonight or it doesn't.
Well,
And I'm only saying that because there's enough stuff we don't know. If it passes tonight, it doesn't change many things. It just gives the administration to go ahead and do what they need to do when they need to do it. And if we don't pass it, in the future, they're going to have to come to us with information to give us the advice that we're going to need to do when we do. So I think we make a decision to withdraw the motion or to go ahead with it and have a vote, but I'm not really sure if it makes a difference one way or the other. That's just my own feeling.
and that's fair. Like, I'm honestly happy to withdraw it. It's just that with this announcement, and I know, yes, 2032 does seem like a long way away. But like my freaking kid just passed his learners today, and so I'm done with children getting their learners, and I feel like they were just babies yesterday and they weren't. So like these things, they like, life goes by a lot faster than I think we realize. I feel like,
that this discussion has given the heads up.
yeah, I feel like I joined council just all that recently, and it's almost been 8 years.
Yeah.
Which is less time than this is kind of, from what we've been told, is going to happen. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get us situated to be able to take action before
How would you like?
bad things happen. I could withdraw, like, I'm very okay with withdrawing, actually. It's just, the point being that this is something that's occurring. I feel like there's a lot of people unaware that this announcement was made. It was really eye-opening to talk to the minister with him saying like, oh yeah, this is the thing, and this is the direction we're headed, and it was like, that announcement wasn't just a casual mention. And when I brought this up at the regional council board, what's the committee called?
DC.
Yeah.
Yeah, the advisory committee.
You know, and this had come up, and like people around the table weren't aware of it. And we're in a really interesting news cycle where it's all about the federal election, and every city has their own police force. The two biggest provinces have their own police force. I'm not gonna say no one cares, but no one that matters to report on things care. And so this stuff is kind of going on, and no one's like even aware that this is on, I'm not gonna say on offer, that this is going to occur. And then since I wrote the notice of motion, what Minister Ellis's plans are, were not also on offer, and now they are. Because he hadn't mentioned any further detail, and now he has. So it's sort of interesting. It's kind of like, are we gonna drink this liter of milk after it's, almost expired? Because I feel like things have happened even since I wrote it. So there you have it.
What do you want to do?
Any objection to me withdrawing the notice of motion, I suppose then?
So you're putting forward on the floor, you'd like to withdraw your?
I can withdraw.
Okay. Councilor Shannon, did you want to add something to that?
So I was just gonna say, if we're waiting for the other study anyway, like it might make more sense to let, there's gonna be a new council elected here soon, maybe leave that decision to them, how they want to proceed with that. I think we've only got a few months left here, so I think that would be a smarter thing to do is, wait till the study comes back, withdraw your motion, wait till the study comes back and see what happens after, and if you want to put it back on the table.
And if I can put that, then I would be able to word it, now that we know other things that are going, even since I wrote it, it's other developments have happened. So, yeah, and that's very fair, to do. The idea being, of course, as already stated, that this is something that just gives administration the instruction to go ahead and look into this when it suits. And if it suits in 3 months, then we will.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Scamahorn, and since the motion's been withdrawn, we'll move on to section 9 reports. And we have before us Mayor Mazur's report and Councilor Shannon's reports. Mayor Mazur, would you like to speak on anything on your report?
Yes, so these are activities I've done either because of the committees I'm on or because as mayor, I'm supposed to do certain things. So I found the Rural Education Symposium that Holy Family subsidized the registration for one of us to go, to be very interesting. And there's definitely lots happening with AI in the education field, as well as mental health, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, I sort of had bullet points there, but on the Alberta Municipality Spring Caucus, one thing that everybody was kind of disappointed in is that the FCSS budget was not being increased at all in 2025. And they serve a community, well, they serve all in our community, but they are also, a preventative aspect of some of the social services. So it was disappointing there. A couple of the meetings I went to, including the Northern Alberta elected leaders, and also the Rural Municipalities of Alberta Spring Conference. At both of those, the city of Grande Prairie is leading the way, asking municipalities for their thoughts and support on continuing to ask the province to review its electric transmission rates. Those in our area are the highest in the province, sometimes 3 times what others in the province pays. So we'll look forward to maybe some ministerial action on that. And that's it, unless somebody has further questions for me.
Anybody have any questions for Madam Mayor? Councillor Shannon, would you like to speak on
No, I think mine was straightforward. If anyone has any questions, they usually reach out anyway, so.
Okay, then we had the Regional Energy Committee meeting minutes. And
So both Councillor Shannon and myself, I think, attended this one. And things are moving forward. And I forget if it was this meeting or the most recent one. But anyhow, we're going to be receiving information from this IAC group. And I forget what they stand for, but they're a federal group that deals with public engagements in situations such as ours, where there's a proposed, in our case, nuclear plant happening. So there are some timelines on that, and we will be getting some more information out to council and everyone as soon as possible.
all right. Would somebody be willing to make a motion? Councillor Good?
I'll move the council accept reports 9-1 to 9-2 for information.
All those in favor of this motion?
In favor?
It's been passed. Thank you.
In favor.
I saw you raise your hand, Councillor Ford.
He's using Internet Explorer. Sorry, that one was for Mr. Good.
Okay, we're on to section 10, information purposes. We have the council communication package, April 4th, 2025. And then we have the April 7th, 2025 governance and priority meeting draft minutes. Does anybody have any thing to speak on or not? Madam Mayor?
Per usual, I noticed incoming correspondence number 5, Minister of Tourism and Sport, an invitation to bid on the 2028 Alberta Games. And I don't know if Director Bell is still in the audience, but it seems to me that the cost to the community has increased significantly with these types of games. And that's maybe why communities are not necessarily stepping forward. Anyways, that's just a comment.
Would anybody be willing to make a motion to accept these? Councillor Good?
Do it again, that move the council accept items 10-1 to 10-2 for information.
All those in favor of this motion?
In
It's
favor.
passed. Okay, item number 11, notice of motion, Councillor Ford. Would you like to speak on your notice?
Just read for the record.
Okay, I'll just
No,
read
he
for the
doesn't.
record. Sorry. Notice of motion, Councillor Ford, I move to direct administration to bring the CAO bylaw to council for review and update at the next council meeting and to freeze all hiring of non-pre-approved temporary positions until the CAO bylaw has been updated. Ready to vote on it?
It's ready.
That's it. Oh, okay, sorry. Just getting ready. Thank you. I thought we were having some discussion on that, so. Then we're on to comments from the public. I do see we had a couple people attend the meeting almost to the very end. Oh, sorry, Sergeant Brown, I did not see you there. Would you like to come forward and speak?
Sure, yeah, just from here or?
No, you can come step forward and push on the mic there.
Well, hello again. I went and changed because I kind of want to separate myself as much as possible from my official role, but obviously, having been a resident of the town of Peace River for going on 20 years, I have an interest with respect to policing related matters that impact us, right? I knew this motion was going to be discussed earlier, and wanted to come and offer some opinion as a resident, I suppose, the best as I can, separating myself from my actual role. So I'm going to talk on publicly known information as best as possible, and as far as I know, I take no position with respect to council wanting to prepare for the future and the possibility of a change. In terms of policing services, I gotta tell you, as far as I know publicly what's available, there's no indication that that's actually gonna happen. And I know there's a strong desire or intended desire on part of the provincial government to possibly see a change in some respect, right? And what that looks like, I mean, I can't predict, right? But what I do know is RCMP are your police detachment jurisdiction right now. What I also know, and what I think we probably all agree on around the table, is that policing has become infinitely more complex than it was 10 years ago, right? And as best as I know, there's been no request from the detachment for an increase to resources from the town under the municipal police service agreement, right? So under that agreement, to the best of my understanding, right, the town has full discretion in terms of whether to raise or lower the complement of officers that are, is paying for and are allocated toward the town. I guess my commentary on that would be, as far as I know, in the last 10 years, far back as I can recall, there's been no request for town to consider that because there's an awareness of the implication financially on the town and the financial position that the town is in, right? So the police of jurisdiction have been doing the same work with the same resources, or more work, I should say, with the same resources, right? And I mean, one only has to drive down the street to see that the social situation is infinitely more complex than it was before the pandemic, right? And what all has factored into that, I can't tell you. I legitimately don't know after much contemplating it. But what I do know is that it's consuming a lot more police resources. It's impacting the town, the businesses, whatnot, and the complement hasn't increased. So I guess, add to that, we know there are several projects on the horizon that are of impact to the town, right? There's a connector road coming from Fort McMurray that's going to be coming through at some point, right? There's a possibility of a nuclear plant being built, right? And for us to believe as residents in the town that that's not going to be impactful policing wise, right? I think would be a mistake. And so I just wanted to speak generally on my opinion as a resident, right? That I would, of course, as a resident, be cautious about redirecting funds from your established policing positions to something different. And again, I take no position on what council sees best to do to prepare for the future and that sort of thing, if it should come to pass. My personal feeling is that that's very much more in the air than I think, some people have the opinion of, including, provincial minister and whatnot. And I say that only because I think back to 20 years ago, I know this exact conversation was happening. And there was a contract renegotiation between the province and whatnot. And this has been a conversation that's been going on for some time, and still 20 years later, we haven't really seen any changes, right? So whether there's going to be a change in the future, I can't say. But I guess I would just recommend, if there was going to be a new look at, how the CPOs are funded or that sort of thing, that maybe other avenues of resource funding be explored. And I would recommend strongly against reallocating funds from the police. That's all I have for you, and respectfully, and as detached as I possibly can be from my vocation.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming back and providing your very well educated and experienced.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on to key communication items. We could talk about our RCMP presentation and report.
Affordable housing bylaw discussion. Hot tub.
Well, I think the bigger item there is the news about our contribution from our municipal neighbor there. If we can make that very prominently advertised, that would be really fantastic.
Talking about a joint.
Councilor Good?
Yeah, I think our discussion of the grants for groups and the support we're giving, the support we're giving the groups that came to us, but also thanks very much for those groups for coming and supporting our community and giving the value that they do to our community.
Is there anything else? Yeah. Okay, if that's all that we have, we'll get a motion to take a 10, or we'll just take a 10-minute break before we take a motion to enter into closed session.
Perhaps we can let the audience, any virtual audience know that we won't be coming back after recess.
And that'll be the end of the online version of our meeting tonight as well, for those who are visiting us, and thank you for visiting us.